Okay, so we'll start middle of Siman Kuf Tzadik. Actually, it's more towards the end. Siman Kuf Tzadik Sif Lamed Gimel. And we're going to do also, hopefully, Lamed Daled, Lamed Hey, Lamed Vav, and Lamed Zayin. Towards the second half of Kuf Tzadik, we're going to be dealing with slightly different halachas, even though we're still discussing samim, stains of various natures. A stain on an aid, dika, on a piece of cloth that a woman checks herself, represents a completely different scenario, different ramifications, different, repercussions, consequences, how to describe it, different halacha. And we did come across it before. What happens when a woman checks herself and she's blood on the aid? We're not necessarily talking about her veset. We're talking about she somehow needed to check, or she was checking because she thought she was expecting her, that she felt something. Checking internally is much more serious than discovering is on her pajama, on her bed. So the following seifim will deal more with bdika. Also, the various seifim that follow will discuss also the difference between an aid that is boduk versus an aid boduk, which possibly we'll discuss more next. But literally, an aid boduk means a piece of cloth that she has already examined before. She's aware of it, she knows it's clean, and she checks herself, and after she examined herself, she sees later on, not necessarily immediately, that there's some stain on it, there's some redness, some blood. But she knows that it was clean before. That's an eid boduk. Versus an eid she'eino boduk, which means that she doesn't recall if it was clean or not. Maybe it was dirty. Maybe it had something on it. She didn't check it before she inserted it. And by the way, why is an aid called an aid? Why is this piece of cloth called an aid? Because it's giving testimony, like a witness.
It's a witness, not an aid.
Right, exactly. No, it's not AID, no. It's an aid. Yeah, you were saying AID.
It's an aid. So first I understood ID.
Yeah, AID, no. Right. No. It's an aid. That's one pirush, one explanation as to why it's called an aid. Given aidis, testifying to the status of this woman, is she now tmeir or is she tehor? So in the following seifim, we're not going to be so much talking about a kesen that has been found on her body or on her beged, but on the aid that she's checking herself with. Now, what makes this more serious is that here there is a chash of a deraisa. All along we've been talking about kamksamim adirabana. And that's very significant, that a kesem is a derabana. You can have sveikas of derabana, you can have a suffix and a deraisa, and make a world of a difference. So here, if she checks herself, and she discovers a stain on it, there's a hashash that she actually saw, that she actually had dam coming out from the makor. We know that for it to be 100% dam min makor that is metame her, it has to be that she felt it. And it could be she really did feel it, but she somehow overlooked that feeling because she made a mistake. She thought she was feeling the aid inside of her. And in reality, what did happen was that there was a sensation. There was the feeling of the dam coming out of the makor. So the moment a woman checks herself internally, she should be extra careful to examine that cloth after she takes it out, before she puts it away, to see if in fact there's anything on it, because that can render her tmeya very easily. Because what are you going to say now? Is it from a bug? No, as we're going to assume. The Chacham said there are no bugs in there. They're not supposed to be there. We're not expecting them to be. So what else could it be? Of course there's a makkah, and we do have makkahs internally, but we're not even talking about that right now, because we're not trying to figure out why she's bleeding. The fact is that she checked herself inside as opposed to just discovering it somewhere else, that it could have come from something else, as we've been learning in the various seifim. On her bed. Well, maybe it's from her husband, maybe it's from her son, right? Maybe she was busy with chickens. I mean, there's all kinds of things that we can be toilet on. But here, we're not even talking about being toilet, because right now we're dealing with a bdika, an internal bdika, and that's pretty much narrowing it to her body, coming in from her body. Then, okay, if it's so clear that it's coming from the body, then what are the possible issues that could be me'oyer a suffix over here? What could make it a question? Well, what could make it a question is that this aid somehow later on, after she checked herself, without looking at it, was perhaps placed in somewhere where it could get dirty. Or perhaps before, if she had not checked the aid, perhaps it had already become dirty from some other use. Maybe she was, I don't know, maybe she put it against her leg, somewhere. I mean, hopefully when a woman checks herself, she should be using a clean cloth. But in talking about cleanliness and hygiene, I asked the old timers, I mean people who lived before the Holocaust, what did we do then? I mean, you didn't have the products that you have today. Hygiene products that you could buy and put there and clean yourself. And they tell me it was very primitive. They grabbed whatever they can, shmates as they're called, rags of old clothing that they cut. Think about it. We just take certain things for granted. Life was very primitive not too long ago, and therefore there were certain difficulties. And for women, it was even more difficult during that time of the month. People who went to the restroom, you know what kind of a restroom it was then. It was a hole in the ground. That wasn't the bad part. That wasn't the difficult part. How did they clean it? There was no tissue paper, no toilet paper. Yeah, that was not even till recently. I was told by people who actually used newspapers, and before Shabbos, they would actually, the father of the house would cut pieces of hard paper. Others who were more lucky used water. They had a bucket of water next to them, and water is actually very, very good.
Isn't there a halacha cleanup stuff?
And right, I was going to say that halachically it would make a big difference if one is really clean or not, whether he can daven. So obviously with the paper we have today, the soft paper, the tissue paper, depending of course how dirty one is, it usually does a good job. But baby wipes is very good. Right. So there's no doubt that those are better than just plain paper. Right.
They would have had to make more assumptions if they saw something.
No.
And more masking for a man, more ability to deal with it.
Well, it all depends on the circumstances. It could be that depending on the individual that he's not that dirty.
No, I'm saying it's a general thing. It's easy.
Yeah, we should do a better job.
We should do a better job, and therefore we status.
If we can, sure. Yeah, as much as possible. Yeah.
The same way.
Yeah. Well, a woman has to be careful. She has to check. She has to make sure that she does her best. Here, what is happening here is we're being presented with all kinds of fakes that came about. Wait a minute, was it clean or not? I didn't look at it before. I just, she just stuck it in. So certain fakes present themselves, and that's what we're going to be doing over here, and that's what causes a suffix. So even though the bedika is internal, and therefore the halacha is a lot more serious over here about, any dam found on the aid. Nonetheless, there's some sfeikas. And the sfeikas could be because of where this aid was found, or where it was placed, I should say. So let's read it inside and see what the chiddush here is. Ha'isha shevodka atzmo be'aid. A woman who checked herself with an aid, an internal examination. What's an aid? Pirush smartut minyan uchebeged edim kol tzidkotenu. In other words, it's a kind of a cloth or a rag, and he quotes here a quote of the word edim. In other words, like the issue of that of edim. In other words, testifying kol tzidkotenu, as he quotes over here. He doesn't know exactly where it is found, but anyway, that's the quote. So this aid that she checks herself with is badukla in this example. Baduk means that she has checked it, she knows it was from before, there was nothing wrong with it, nothing on it. And after she checked herself, nimtza alav, she found on it afilu tipa kechardal, even a small drop of blood, the size of a mustard seed, which is a lot less than a louse. Smaller than a louse. Ben agol, ben mashuch, whether it's round or whether it's elongated, she's temea, she's unclean. Now this ben agol, ben mashuch, we'll see will also make a difference at times, if something is elongated or round. In other words, the shape of what she discovers. But so far the Mechaber tells us in this scenario it does not make a difference. Even if it's small, regardless of its shape, she's tmeya. ולא עוד, אלא אפילו נמצא לה כתם מאכולת מעוכה טמאה. Even somehow, when you take the aid and you look at the blood, you also see on it a squashed louse. She's tmeya. We assume the louse came afterwards. The blood is not from the louse. She checked herself inside. And the louse was not inside. I mean, the bugs were not inside. V'chein adin, the same would apply. Kishebatka bo, she checked herself. But then, v'inichato v'kufsa, she put it away in a drawer, in a box. V'achar sha'a, and after an hour or so, batkauto, she looked at it, u'matzah alav dam. She then found the blood. Kol shehu, even a little bit. Ben mashuch, ben agol, whether it's elongated or whether it's round, she's tmeya. So what's the chiddush over here? That place of the woman, the internal, to her makor, let's just say, where she checks herself, even though she's not checking the makor, but that tract, I sometimes try not to be descriptive, but you understand, where a woman checks herself, as far as she can check herself, the hand cannot go too far. But that area that she customarily checks herself is baduk mimacholet. In other words, the Chachamim said, you can rest assured that there's no lice in that spot. That we have to, try to begin to think, well, maybe there was some louse in there that she squished, she checked herself, and that's where the blood comes. No, that place is not to be suspected that there has ma'acholet. Doesn't enter over there. And because of that, we don't have anything else to be toile on, except that it came from her. Now, here, the Mechaber just talks about the other possibility, that even though later she put it into a box, they say, well, wait a minute, maybe it got the stain from something that was in the box. No, we don't say that either. Not only that, in the Beis Yosef, he mentions even more than the boxes. Even if it was placed on top of her dresser, it was in the open, exposed. It wasn't inside something. It was b'mokum megula, as he says. There's no chash. We don't say, you know what, maybe it's possible that it got somehow a louse on it. And when she placed it down, maybe she squished the louse. And therefore because we're not choshes that happened, therefore she's tmeya, vadai. Now what's the chiddush here that she's tmeya, vadai? That even if the ketem is round, and it's less than a grease, well, of course, blood could be less than a grease. No, but that it's round. Now what's round is very unusual for it to come from the body. When a woman checks herself, it didn't just drip. She checked. So when she's inserting her hand to check, it's not going to come out exactly round. So when we see something round, a round stain, we suspect, you know what, maybe something was squished, maybe it did come from some other source other than, it's usually not round when it clean. Yeah, well, in this case it is, from the body, that's what we say. She's tmeya, regardless. So it's regardless whether she took it out and she saw the blood right away, regardless if she put it down, regardless if it was in a box, regardless if it's less than a grease, and regardless if it's round. She's tmeya vadai because we know for a fact what she did. This is not a ketem that just appeared, that we have to begin to be mechalek. Well, is it less than a grease or more than a grease? Right? She checked herself. She went inside. She went to oisom mokoim, to that place where the blood comes from or flows through. And therefore, that in itself, that examination, which we've already discussed, is a whole different scenario. That, the halacha representing this kind of a situation where a woman actually checks herself is very different than when she just sees it on her panty or on the bed. Completely different. This is already a deraisa, according to many. So that's Seif Lamed Gimel. Lamed Daled is a little bit more lenient. What happened in Lamed Daled that's different than Lamed Gimel? Lamed Daled, after she checked herself. She put it underneath a pillow. Botko atzmo be'eid habotuklo. Still, we're talking about eid habotuklo. We're talking about a piece of cloth that she knows it was clean. So she checked herself with that. V'nichato tachat hakar o tachat hakeset. And she placed it not in a box, not in the open. She put it actually underneath the pillow or the matratz, the mattress. So there could have been some bug there. Yes. There was pressure applied. Yes. Ulemachar, and the next day nimtza olav dam, and the next day she takes it out and she sees blood in it. In this example, imashuch, if this stain is elongated, she's still tmeya. Why? Because an elongated stain, shechaskoso me'akinuach. There's a chazaka here that this stain came from the cleaning, from the checking herself, the cleaning around that area, because of the shape. V'im agul, but if it's round, ve'ein bo kegris ve'od, and there's no grease or more, tehora, then she is clean. We actually are going to be lenient here, and we're going to say, we're going to assume that it came from the dam of ma'acholet that was squished underneath the pillow, because it's round, and because it doesn't have a grease ve'od. I mean, we always need the shear, because if it's more than a grease, then we know that's not a louse. So we're always going to use that shear if we want to be toilet on a louse. But the chiddush here, or the chiluk here, is that here we are going to be lenient if it's round. Because the fact that she put it under a pillow or under the mattress, there is a chance. And as long as there is that chance, then we're makel on it. So ordinarily, checking herself inside, right, we would say, one has to be machmir. Especially since she didn't just find the ketem. She didn't find the ketem. She actually checked herself. The b'diko bekinuach. Therefore, you can't be toilet namacholis. Now, so what's making us being toilet namacholis here anymore? Because first of all, the dam is a gol. The dam here is round. And dam, the derech of dam, of a stain of dam, is not to be round. It's usually elongated, if it's coming from a kinuach, from a check. Still, even so, we still have to, if we're going to be relying on a macholet, we still need a shear of pochos migris ve'od. Once you have more than that shear, she's going to be tmeya because there's nothing else to be toilet on. The Ramah, however, adds, ve'hu hadin imu yoyse mikigris, if it's more than a kigris, but yesh mokom litlois boy. Obviously, if there's something that you can attribute it. What? Well, we had a whole bunch of things in Sif Yud Ches, if you recall, that she did all kinds of things. All kinds of things where she went or what she was involved with, activities that she may have had contact with things that she can attribute it to them. In Sif Yud Ches. Yeah. So that's what the Ramah means. It could be more than Higris, but it would have to be in the event that she really has other things to be toilet. The Taz here is important, I think. The Taz adds that a woman who has hemorrhoids, which we've also spoken about, which is like a makkah in her goof. Now, the significance of hemorrhoids versus any other makkah is that hemorrhoids is actually in a location which is close to where she'll be checking herself. So she could have easily touched that spot. Easily. So this is a very good thing that the Taz mentions over here, because it does happen. So the Taz says like this: a woman who has hemorrhoids could be toila that perhaps it came from the hemorrhoids, even when she was checking herself. In other words, hemorrhoids, which we discussed in the past, is not only something that we can be toilet on a kesem. Remember, ksomim can happen from all kinds of things. Hemorrhoids for sure. It drips, it can get onto clothing, sure, easily. But here, the Taz says, you know what, even if she's checking herself, remember checking is much more serious, she could be toilet that perhaps she touched that spot. Why? Why could she be toilet? And she's checking herself. So the Taz says something very interesting. The Taz says, when the possibility of the tliya is just as strong as the possibility of the dam from the makor, in other words, when it has equal weight, she's checking herself too. Okay, she's checking herself internally, and there is of course dam that comes occasionally from the makor. And that's quite common. It's a common phenomena. So we assume, she's checking herself. Where else did it come? So that's shachiach. That's common. It happens. But the Taz says when she has some other symptom on her body that is quite possible that the dam came there just as much, like hemorrhoids, then you have like a sofika shokul. it's like an equal 50-50 chance of it came from one of the two. With a suffix shakal, you leave her on her chazaka of being tahara, that she's clean. In regular ksamim, when we're toilet, they are abanan. So we are toilet on things that are not shachiyah. It could be that it came from that. It could be it came from a louse. It could be it came from a bed bug. It could be because it could be. What are the chances? Oh, I don't know. We're mekel. It's ksamim. It's derabanan. So we can toilet on something which is not shechiyah. It's not common. When was the last time you killed a louse? Or even a bed bug that you saw a stain on whatever. But the chachamim allowed for that. Here the Taz says, but when it comes to hemorrhoids, when it is quite shechiyah that it could have come from there, as much as it could have come from there, then they're both equal. They're both equal. We'll leave her becheskas tahara.
Would he say the same or scars or something at location?
Yes, if it's in the same location.
Same location.
Because remember, the other times that we were talking about makkah, we have to figure out, is it possible it came from... She had it on her shoulder. Shoulder? Remember? Yeah.
We talked about open.
Right. That could have opened.
It could have opened.
But it was in such a location that if it did open, we can see it happen.
So the time applied to other situations.
Yeah, but this is a very good example of something that's very close to where she examines herself. Hemorrhoids are not on the shoulder. You know what hemorrhoids are, right? Yeah. So it could easily have happened that she really touched that spot. Very good point. What's interesting about the Taz, however, he tells us, this is good, this is possible, but wait a minute. Not all the time. If she checked herself beyond Vesta on the day of her Veset, that she's expecting her Veset, I would not be toilet this on the hemorrhoids. Taz is machmer. The Chavas Das, at least I know the Chavas Das is mekel. The beyond Vesta, you can still be toilet on that. By Makkah, by a Petza, we're not going to always be mekel. The young Vesta. Otherwise she will never become Tmeya if she has a problem. If that's the time she's expecting it, we're just going to be machmer. But here, there's a good chance still that it's coming from the Tchorim, it's coming from the hemorrhoids. And the Chavas Das, I believe, says it will still be mekel beyond Vesta. The Tas says no, beyond Vesta. He says this is the time she's expecting it. To go so far as to say she may have touched it on the Yom HaVesed, that he's not prepared to say. Alright, yeah.
That would be the time of Shabbat.
Exactly. And that would also be the time she would be doing the B'dika too. Yeah, but still, you have to be careful that you did B'dika right. The Taz was making a good point. She could have easily slipped and touched that spot. They're very close. Alright, Sif Lamed Hey. Bodko Atzmo Be'eda Boduklo. We're still talking about an aid that is Boduklo. I mean, she knows that it was a clean aid. So she doesn't have to start thinking, well, perhaps the stain was always there before, perhaps it was dirty from before. We're still talking about an aid that's clean, for sure. Before she inserted it, she knows it was clean. Now this time, however, after checking herself, v'tachato biyarecho, she went ahead and squeezed it against her leg. Maybe she had something on her leg that she would try to clean, or something else. In other words, she pressed it against her leg. This is all examples from the Gemara. Okay, so in this scenario, what do we have? We have something that is in between, as we will soon see. It's not underneath a pillow or a mattress. It's not just lying in a box without any pressure on it. Here, there is some pressure. She could have squished something, right? But it's on her leg. Okay, now what happened? The mochar, and the next thing, nimtza olav dam, and she found blood on it. So similar situation to what we've seen before. She did not see the dam right away. She did do something to that aid that could have maybe changed the whole situation here. She discovers the blood the next day. Again, the halacha is imoshuch, if it's elongated, tmeya, afilu bekosher, even a little bit. Vim ogol, if it's round, tehora, she's clean. Im ein bo kegris ve'oid, if there's no kegris ve'oid. V'yesh oimrim she'af ogol tome bechol shehu. That's the difference. Some will say that even if it's round, she's still Tmeya Bechol Shehu. So what's exactly the difference between Lamed Hey and Lamed Dalet here? So in Lamed Hey we see that she was Boidik herself. So what we have here is a situation where she's Tmeya Min HaTorah because she checked herself. And it's more mistaber, it's more likely than not that the dam is from the Makor than to believe or to assume that it came from somewhere else. Because she doesn't have something to be toilet. Right? There's nothing else. She's not going to be toilet. Well, I was, cutting up some chickens. There's nothing else, so therefore we're assuming more likely than not that it's coming from her. So she's Tmeya Min HaTorah. However, in the din, in the situation where Tochato B'Melicha, that she squeezed it against her leg, that already presents a machlokes. If it's round, as we said before, and it's less than the kikris, the Ramban and the Rashba are metaher her. So that's the first opinion in the Mechaber. The Rambam is metame in every situation. And that's the second opinion. So you have a stam. Stam is the first opinion. The Mechaber just says, so is halacha. Then he says, yei shayrim. And usually we follow the stam, the first opinion. So what would be different about this one? Why would here the Rambam be metame? Why would it be stricter over here? So the Poiskin, the Achronim, the Shach, actually, some of them paskin like the Rambam. And the explanation is as follows. It's possible that the Rambam is being machmir over here, the Taz explains it over here, because the Rambam goes to Shitosai, that anything found ala Basar on her flesh is Tomeh, even Bechol Shehu. So even though, we're seeing something round over here, and we're thinking that, maybe this round stain is coming from the leg and not from the aid, right? So what? If it would be found on the leg itself, according to the Rambam, it would also be Tmeya, because it's on the leg, it's on her flesh. So it makes no difference. Yes, you're right. It's possible that it came from something else. It's not. It wasn't on the aid. In other words, how come the aid is now bloody? Because the aid touched the leg. It's only then that it became bloody. Not that it was bloodied when she checked herself. What's the suffix of it? The suffix is she sees the blood on the aid. But wait a minute, she also squeezed it against her leg, right? So maybe there was something on the leg. Who says that blood came from inside? She did something else. Just like with the pillow. When she put it under the pillow, under the mattress, we did allow for laos, if it's less than ingredient. So here too, something else presented itself, which presents a suffix, and maybe it did come from the leg. Yes, but the Rambam says, so what? If it was on the leg, she would also be tmei. So I don't care where the dam came from. So the Shach says, you know what? The leniency of Ma'acholet is only more applicable in the example of Sif Lamed Daled with your hair pillow. That, yes. Not where she squeezed herself or she pressed it against her leg. Yeah, the other poskim, the Achronim, are making like the Mechaber over here. This is all situations where the aid is boduk to her, and we have to assume she checked herself internally. The more likely than not it came inside. But here what happens is that she did something. She did something else. So in some ways, it's similar to the previous halacha, but the Rambam says no. It's a little bit more, as the Shach explains, it's a little bit stricter. In the case of the Kara, in the case of Sif Lamed Daled, if you remember, the Mechaber makes a distinction, that im moshuch tmeya, im ogul tehora, right? Because there we were being toilet on the ma'acholet. Here, im ogul tehora, im ein bo kegris ve'oid. If it's round, it's tehora if there's no kegris ve'oid. V'yesh oimrim she'af ogul tomeh. So in other words, that even though ogul usually would tell you that it's not from the body, still, this one would be a little bit more chumr than the situation in Lamed Daled, where it appears more of a clear-cut distinction between the shape, that the shape would make sense. Because if the shape is elongated, then everybody would agree. And more likely than not, it came from her body. The chiluk over here is, yes, but it's ogul. Nonetheless, the Rambam says, no, even if it's ogul in the case of pressing against her leg, it's not like the example of putting it under the pillow. So it's a little bit more chomer in Sif Lamed Hey than it is in Lamed Dalet. An important shach over here, just a little bit more of a clarification. The reason why we make such chilukim, moshuch and ogul, if it's elongated around, is only because she checked herself. And in checking herself, we say, listen, more likely than not, it's going to come out moshuch. Why is the Rambam being machmir here? So one explanation was because it was a Basar. In the case of kar, we did use that leniency that if it's ogul, maybe it's allowed. So the Shach explains, why we have to make this distinction is because she checked herself. Regular ksomim, we never made a difference between them. It wouldn't make a difference what kind of a shape. Triangles, squares, whatever shape it was. A kesem that is found anywhere, regardless of its shape, has a din of a kesem, depending on the size, depending on the color, depending on the location, and so forth. But we're not going to make it a distinction of shape. Why are we making that distinction here? Only because she checked herself. That's also we have to now try to figure out, wait a minute, round, did it really come from her? It's round. When a woman checks herself, it doesn't come out round, usually. Right? So, we're machmir. Unless there could be some tliya here that it could have come from a machoret and so forth. And then, ogul, round, would make sense that it did come from something else. If you don't have anything to be toilet on, then you can't be toilet on. That is why in the first example of Lamed Gimel, the Mechaber says it makes no difference. Moshuch, ogul, even if it was a little drop, there was nothing else. No pillow, no nothing. In Sif Lamed Gimel, it's plain. Not only that, even if you found a louse squished on this, as you checked, but it's not doing. Maybe it fell later. It wasn't inside. It didn't come from that. So Lamed Gimel is more chomer than the rest of them, because there's nothing else to be toilet on.
Under these type of circumstances, the dam could have been caused, it really would not have caused her to bleed, but caused by the inspection.
Remember we briefly spoke about that too, that sometimes there could be a makkah in the sides. Yeah.
But she has to be very inside.
Sure.
Pressure alone could have caused something to open.
Oh, sure. Remember, we spoke about especially when the bdik is being done with some sort of tool.
Right. So
that is sharp. Right. Yeah.
How does the Rambam from there? If she's got it, it's dead. And she's tummy.
No, we would have to consider that. If she says, listen, the reason why this happened to me is because of this tool that was inserted in me. Remember, doctors sometimes insert, this presents itself this could be a big problem. What was the size of the tool? How far did it go? What did it do to her? You're right. So we have to evaluate the whole situation before we tell her, you're a Niddah. Maybe she did have something from before that was bleeding. That is, it's not down from the Mikvaot. That is one of the big questions in Hilchas Niddah. Where is this blood coming from? Even though it's internal, it could still be that it's not. But we need to know something, or she has to suspect it. She's just doing a regular check. She's not saying, well, I may have something in there. How do you know? You're just thinking like that. So here, as the Shach explains, we're dealing with B'dika, and that is why we need to make this distinction. Because if it's Moshuch, if it's elongated, Raglaim Ladovar, it's a clear indication that it's from her. But if it's round, it could be that it did happen as a result of some louse, but that would depend on the circumstances of what happened to that piece of cloth after she checked herself. If nothing happened, as we see Lamed Gimel, then of course, regardless of the shape and size, she'll be Tmeil. Alright, next If, Lamed Vav and Lamed Zayin discuss the scenario of Eid She'eino Boduk. Later on, in next week, Hashem, we'll talk a little bit more about the difference between Eid She'boduk and She'eino Boduk as far as what constitutes Boduk. or an Eid She'eino Boduk. But now, let's just assume that Eid She'eino Boduk means she's not sure if it was clean or not. So on the one hand, she's doing an internal exam, even though the Eid is not Boduk. So what? We don't really have a clear reason of why to be toilet the dam from somewhere else. So, l'chayra, we're going to be metameh her regardless of the status of this Eid. Why assume that it's from something else? We don't have yet something to be toilet on. Unless, of course, it's a louse. Right? So she should be tmeya min haTorah regardless. Like any other bdika with an Eid that is boduk. And as we've said before, stam damin min hamakor. Stam, the dam, does come from the makor. On the other hand, what happens over here in the Eid She'eino Boduk is that what we're saying is, you know what? We don't really know what transpired over this Eid all along. So there's already a little bit of a makom, a little bit of room, listapik, to have some space as to, perhaps, nonetheless, since she didn't check this cloth, it was dirty from before. Maybe she had even used it before. Maybe she borrowed it. I mean, there are all kinds of situations. So therefore, some suffix presents itself in this case. And therefore, if there's some suffix, that we can leave her becheskas tahara, perhaps. So this is a big machlokes in the Gemara. The Tanoi, if she finds a stain on such an Eid that is not boduk, that is more than a kegris. Rebbe is metame her like a niddah. Rabbi Elyahu is metame this like a ketem, a regular stain. And Rabbi Yossi, who's metaher other things, other situations, they say he's also metaher this particular. So Rabbi Yossi is metaher. Eid She'eino Boduk. I was sure that it was clean. I mean, it was already dirty from before. So the same machlokes that we have then in the Gemara we have today in the Poskim, in the Rishonim. The Rambam is metame like Kenida. The Raiva, the Rosh is metame kekesem. And I think the Tur says the same thing. Rashba is metayer, but he says whoever is machmer is doing the right thing. But be'ikar din, the Rashba says she would be tahora. And Eid She'eino Boduk means that it's possible that it was just had the stain from before. Who's to say that it was from now that she? We don't know. It's a suffix. So botko atzmo be'Eid She'eino Boduk. Sif lamed vav. So she checked herself with an Eid She'eino Boduk. Afilo inichato shomur betevoso motzol of dam. Even if she put it away later in a box and she found blood on it, here you have to add the parentheses because it's unclear as to, what the halacha here is in Mechabra, if you read it with or without the parentheses. But we're going to read it with the parentheses. So even though she put it in a box and she found later blood on it, eino tmeya, she's not going to be tmeya. Im yesh bo kegris ve'oid. This you also have to add the parentheses. Ella in yesh bo kegris ve'oid. It's very confusing without the parentheses. So she's not going to be tmei unless it has more of a kegris, which makes sense. Obviously, if it's more than a kegris, then you're not going to be told on macholet. But if it's less than a kegris, it appears to be that, at least according to some, the Mechaber would hold here that since the Eid is not boduk, she is not tmeya. Ain't not tmeya unless it's more than a kegris. So look at the Ramah. The Ramah says, Dafka be'eid beinoni. This is an Eid Beinoni. What's an Eid Beinoni? She'en cheskoso boduk velo meluchlach. We're not sure if it was clean, but we know for sure it was not so dirty. But in bodko atzmo be'eid shecheskoso meluchlach, if she checked herself with an Eid that was really dirty, for example, shelokcho Eid mimokom shedomim mitzuyim sham, she took an Eid from a whole bunch of shmatas where there's a lot of bloody stuff there. Shecheskoso shekvar hayu b'ksomim. Most likely than not, there has a chazaka that it already had stains before. But when she used it to check herself, boy, but nimtzol of kesem, and she found the kesem, tehora, she's clean. Afilu yoiser mikegris. If it's from a place that it's meluchlach, dirty clothes, even more than a gris. So I saw something very interesting here. The Chochmah Sodom. What would be a place which is meluchlach? Because the Ramah says if it's really meluchlach, he would agree that even if it's more than a gris, laundry. So if she grabbed something from the hamper, I guess that's the word, where they keep all the dirty clothes, and she just took it to check herself, that would constitute taking an Eid mimokom meluchlach, which even the Ramah would say she's tahara afilu yoiser mikegris. There's a question as to what would you say if she did not take it from the laundry, but she took it from a place where she puts or hangs her used clothing, but it's not so meluchlach. Yeah. That would be a machloikis. Some, I guess, would be more mekel, some would be more machmir. Yeah. I think the Chacham Hasodam says that even if it's just a place where we recycle it, she just puts clothing, hangs or puts away clothing that are not so clean. Even if it's not the laundry, it's like Domi Mitsuyim. It would be, she would be clean. But the Ramah doesn't say that. In order for it to be, Tahara, it would have to be completely meluchlach. Cheskoso meluchlach, for sure. I guess that the best example would be from the laundry. So, in the event she did find less than a kegris, according to everybody here, she would be tahara, because we would be tolin namacholes in a louse. Even if it's elongated. Even if it's elongated? Yeah, because even though before we said that even if she put it underneath a pillow, we would not be matar by elongated, it would still have to be round. Here, why would we be more lenient? Because it's eino boduk. We don't know what happened to it before. We're more lenient. So this is a big difference, which we'll talk a little bit more about next week. The next even have to do with that. So being aware of the status of this prior to checking herself can make a big difference. And the last seif that we'll do now is Lamed Zayin, which is basically a follow-up of Lamed Vav with one difference. Remember how we had before, she took an eid boduk, but she pressed it against her leg? So the pressing against her leg caused a suffix here. Well, maybe it's from the leg. Maybe it wasn't from her. So here we have the same situation, but with the eid she'eino boduk. In the case of eid boduk, it's eid boduk. So the Rambam was machmir, and even we are machmir to an extent. We're only lenient in ogul if it's round and if there's no kegris. But here in Sif Lamed Zayin, botko atzu be'eid she'eino boduk lo, betochato b'yercho, and she squeezed it or pressed it against her leg, then she found it afilu kegris ve'oid, even more than a gris tehora. So here you're seeing the situation where since it's an eid she'eino boduk, even if she's finding kegris ve'oid. Whereas in Lamed Vav, we said she's clean unless she found a stain that's larger than kegris ve'oid. So even though in Lamed Vav we had a eid she'eino boduk, still we're a little bit machmer if it's more than a kegris ve'oid. She did check herself. It is more than a kegris, so it's a louse. In the case of eid al boduk and pressed against her leg, we're extra lenient. Tehora, afilu kegris ve'oid. The whole shekin the Ramah says in minichaso achar abdiko b'makom shesh blito is a kesed. The Torah forbids. Obviously, even the more so if you put it away somewhere where it could easily have become stained. The makom that we can attribute to that it could have gotten bloodied, we're going to be metar her b'yoyse mikegris, aval inichato b'makom she'ein dam shechiach tmeyo imu yoyse mikegris. If she did put it in a place where it's not shechiach at all, that they would come in contact with any blood, then she would be tmeya if it's more than a kegris. So the fact that we are being here lenient by pressing against her leg is, I think as Rashi says, because we have a sfek sveika lekulo. Safek, it did not come from the aid. In other words, she pressed it against her leg. Safek, that it did not come from the aid, not from her exam. In other words, in that stain on the leg, on the aid, went onto the leg. But what are we saying? It could be it came from the leg to the aid. And even if you say it did come from the aid because she checked herself internally, perhaps Safek, it was already there from before she checked herself. You see how we have a sex faker here? Because we're wondering, she did press against her leg. Well, maybe it was something on her leg that got the aid. No, it could be that it was the aid because she checked herself and the aid got the leg dirty. And so there's a question over here that they talk about in the placement. Does it have to be that the leg is now dirty too? Leg and the aid, not the leg, or just the leg, and not the aid, right? Either way, there's a suffix here. Where did this blood come from? And even if you say it came from the aid, perhaps it was there from before. This is an eid she'eino boduk. So perhaps the kesem was there already from before. So you have a sfeik. The Shach doesn't agree with this from a variety of reasons. But I believe the halacha is like the Chacham Hasodam brings and like others who bring, they were mekel, like the Mechaber here, Poshet, not like the Shach. that in the event that you have such a sfeika, she did press it against her leg for whatever reason. So even if it's more than a kikris, she's tehoro. So the extra kula here is because it's a eicha in a bodu. Okay, I think we can stop here.